Today I'm going to be fixing my Gillette razor. The handle had broken off, as you can see right here, and I need to put it back together. And I'm going to be putting it back together by using epoxy. This right here is epoxy. And I'm going to be using this so I won't have to deal with this issue of it coming apart again. Epoxy right here is made by Gorilla. This is the Gorilla brand. Of course, there are various different other brands, but Gorilla, I just so happen to have this. It's incredibly strong and 100% tough. It sets in 5 minutes. All right, so I'm gonna use this. Now, Gillette makes a good razor. This is the power version of the razor, and it vibrates here to give you a really close shave. And I don't want to have to go out and buy another one when I have good epoxy sitting right here. Now, if you've never used epoxy, this is a two-part product where it dispenses from two tubes in here, and then you have to mix it together and then apply it to whatever you're going to be using to bond. Now, there are different types of epoxies. Some of them are good for metal, others are good for plastic or wood. But in this case, this epoxy right here is good for a multitude of things. And you could find that out by simply just reading on the back. Now, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and sit this down and prepare everything for me to bond the razor back together. You can see it's in two parts. Now you want to make sure you glue it back properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this back into place. You can see right there to make sure it's secure. And if there's any excess crud around here, you possibly could get something like a razor or knife or something and scrape the excess crud off. Same thing goes as well inside of here. But if it's not too bad and it sits back into place quite normally, I would say go ahead and start the process of gluing this back together using epoxy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to the side, and I'm going to take the top off of the epoxy. And with the epoxy, what you have to do is dispense it, and then you have to mix it and apply. So I'm going to put some down on this piece of paper right here. It's important that you have something that you can put the epoxy in, because you'll probably want to discard of it after usage. So I'm going to take this, and some of the epoxy is coming out, only on one side. There it goes. There's the other side starts to come out. Probably a little bit more than what I wanted to pull out, but that should do the trick. And before I put the cap back on the epoxy, I simply pull back on that just to make sure that it sucks any excess epoxy out of the way. Then I'm going to put this back into place, because using the tube is good. So once I have this, I'm going to take something, made a makeshift stick, and I'm going to mix together the two parts. And doing this activates the epoxy so it can have a very good bond. So it's important that you mix it well. All right, so once you mix it well, you just take a little bit of it and you can either apply it inside of this or along the walls. I'm going to go ahead and apply it inside of this and then wipe up any excess if it comes out. So I'm going to put that in there like that. And epoxy's made to do a lot more a lot tougher jobs than just gluing back something like this. So this razor, this epoxy should be more than enough. So you can see there's a little flood in there, and it's probably too much, but that's okay. Make sure to line it up properly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide it in slowly. And you can see some of it's oozing out, which is okay. Now I'm going to wipe around it so I don't have excess epoxy coming out. So I'm going to take this paper, I'm going to take the back side, and I'm going to wipe up the excess epoxy. Or I might even take a piece of this paper right here and then come around and just wipe up excess epoxy, because once it dries, it'll harden up and it'll be difficult to take off at that point. So it's good to have something to wipe stuff up. I'm going to use another strip of paper. I'm going to go up here and just make sure you get it really well. Okay, there's something that's coming off right there. I might glue that down or just rip that off, but at the current moment, I'm just getting up the excess epoxy. So it sets in 5 minutes, but I generally like to wait 24 hours after I've placed this on here, epoxy, before I actually use an item, just to ensure that the epoxy set in nicely and I won't have to deal with it coming off inadvertently. So it's sitting in here. Come closer so you can see this, or actually zoom in. See right there, it's set in really nice. I got up the excess epoxy. Good enough for me, but if you want to get it out a little bit cleaner, you can definitely take a piece of tissue paper and wipe it before it starts to harden. So I glued it, and in about 24 hours, I should be able to use this razor with the epoxy fully dried, and I won't have to worry about the handle coming apart again. So that is me, or that is how you glue together a Gillette razor using epoxy so you don't have to go out and purchase a new one. I really hope this video was helpful. Thanks a lot for watching.